Hey guys, welcome to the follow-up video for our Getting Better cover. And now that we're getting into the Sgt. Pepper era, we're dealing with a lot of overdubs. In this one we have 2 guitars, 2 basses, drums, overdub drums, hand claps, tambura, piano, pianette, congos. We used bongos on this one. I'll start off by talking about the guitar parts, and then later Neil will talk about the bass and the mix and some other things. The first guitar part that I'll start with was probably played by Paul, and it starts off with the octave G's up here. But one thing about it is I hear the high G a lot more than I hear the low G, so when I recorded it at the time I only even played the high G, but we dubbed in a little bit of the low G underneath of it. But one thing I don't like about the octave is you get the bass note kind of takes over, so if you can focus on strumming the low note softer than the high note, you might have a better luck with that. You could even upstroke it if you want. And that's mostly it for that guitar part. During the verses he does the open G's. And then in the choruses he's just doing the... If you're trying to figure out all the open G variations throughout the verses, just check out the isolated videos on the other channel, and you may have better luck with that. And now I'll move on to the other part, which I believe George played on either the Strat or the Casino. They are both single coil pickups, so you're going to get a similar tone. I used the Casino because I was borrowing it at the time from Young's vlog, and I just wanted to be safe and have both parts on the Casino. I think I planned on going back and overdubbing it on the Strat. So anyway, it starts off with this F add 2, which is kind of a throwback to the earlier days. Since the Hard Day's Night era, they were using this chord, which is just an F plus the 2. They were using that chord a lot throughout Hard Day's Night, Beatles for Sale, Revolver with Got to Get You Into My Life. So it starts off with that. It's, again, staccato. And then this part also does some open G's. And then it does the riff, which is a riff that implies the 4 chord, although I think the rest of the band stays on the G. So it's like, which is like your C, but with your major third on the bottom. So it's 7 and then some 5s. And then after that riff you have an open D to get back into the G. And that's part of what makes this riff funky. You know, kind of like that. But he goes back into this kind of Chuck Berry rock and roll riff. And remember, those are really chunky, so you want to palm mute them. Keep them kind of short, leave some room for the vocals. You're kind of under the mix at this point. So right after the drone, there's one of my favorite parts. And I love the way it comes in with that. I actually messed it up in the video and I went like this. Which is cool too, but I believe George does it on the D string, so you get 5 to 7 on the D string instead of on the A string. And then it ends with the, on the 5th fret, D to A string. Back to the Chuck Berry rock and roll stuff. Then also at 111 there's a dusty volume pot. You hear him either turning the volume up or down, and it's kind of scratchy. You could listen to that on the isolated guitar tracks. And then I believe the end of the song was dubbed because the backing track, most of the band stops right at that last note. Right there, and it doesn't continue on with the way the final version does. So I think they dubbed that later on. I think I missed it as I was playing along to the guitar tracks. And that's, I think, pretty much it for the guitar parts. Let me know if I missed anything and you want to hear about it. I'm going to pass it over to Neil.
Hey guys, it's Neil here, right here. Well, not right here on your screen. You're not here though. That's the beauty of the internet, I guess, right? Anyway, here to talk about getting better. And the bass for getting better. Isn't this a fun song? I think this is a fun song. I remember learning this bass line early on when I was a kid. Well, I thought I learned it, but it wasn't totally right. but I always had fun doing that's fun. 2 octaves. I always remember wishing I had a 6-string bass so I could do it and then do it in the high E string right here, and it wouldn't have to be so up and down the neck. But now I enjoy that. That's part of the fun of getting better on bass. Let's talk about it. Now, when I started listening to the isolated tracks in the song, especially the new Pepper remixes and all that, I'm pretty confident now that starting on the first chorus, there's 2 basses in the song. Either maybe Bleed from another take, but I think it's 2 overdub basses. And they also have reverb on them, especially starting in the chorus. If you listen to the isolated rock band multi-tracks, you definitely hear basses doing 2 separate parts. There's, like, specifically on the second chorus, there's the one bass does that, and one bass goes. And there's like 2 different fills that kind of happen at once. There's kind of a secondary bass, a clear first bass and a secondary bass, and the secondary bass has more reverb on it. Kind of sounds like Fixing a Hole to me too. Like that sounds like 2 basses as well, but we'll get into that another time because I also think that's Johnny George. I'll explain why in a later video. Not this video. This is all about getting better in the bass. So I'm going to talk about what I used. It's this. It's my Rickenbacker 4003S. It's a 1982. People ask me questions about it all the time. When I got it, it looked far more like this. This is my other Rickenbacker bass. It was natural maple glow, as they call it. Had a completely different headstock. It was still the right-handed headstock, but it was smaller and feebler. And they chopped it off and made a new one, and they did this custom pink job, and it looks beautiful now. Isn't that so cool? I like it a lot. So very similar, technically speaking, to what Paul used in the record. I can't speak what amp. It could have been his Bassman, could have been his box thing that he had at the time. I don't know. If you know or have an idea, why don't you write it in the comments? Why don't you tell me? You know, I'm using my Vox T60 little bass thing over there with bass later on. It's the way to go. So there's a few things in this I never thought to do before. You know, it's that beginning part. I was playing this. Today, as I was going over, I realized he kind of does a little hiccup there. He goes. Here's another place where the basses separate a little bit. Is on the second verse of that. Twice the second bass sounds like it goes like it does that thing while the other bass is going. And then at the end of that verse, the second bass, or one of the basses, does it sounds like the first bass goes. I've got to admit, you know, it sounds like that. This has 2 separate chorus bass lines. They're kind of a variation of a theme. The first one is more of a, you know. He kind of goes more staccato there, so watch out for that. And then the other choruses, he gets into a more kind of cool thing where it's it's essentially the same pattern, just done in a more cool way. I noticed today, the first couple times, he doesn't go. He kind of goes. And he slides off of that. There's always a lot of sliding going on with Paul. He's always kind of sliding in and out of notes. It's kind of like, ooh, ooh, ooh. He's always kind of doing that thing a little bit. And then I heard a fill I've never heard before on the very last time of the last chorus. What I think is the secondary bass does it does a boom boom dum It's very low. You don't really hear it in the final mix of the song, but when you listen to the isolated bass channel, you hear one of the bass. And you hear the other one go. Yeah, but you know, bass really ties the song together because there's not a lot going on completely with other instruments. You know, there's the which is a really weird sound. We kind of struggled to get that because I've heard that's George Martin either hitting the strings of a piano with a hammer or he's hitting like a reed of like an electronic keyboard. I think he's hitting piano strings though. He's like going. And maybe with some guitar in there because it sounds like some feedback, but it's definitely a very unique sound that isn't just like your standard, oh, let's play a high G on a guitar, you know. So we really tried to get something to sound like that without ruining some piano sort of thing. The guitar's doing very little, the keyboard's doing very little, drums are very sparse too, so the bass is kind of the thing that ties this whole song musically together. And of course, I'd say the vocals are their own instrument in this song as well. It's a lot of Paul doubling himself in certain harmony sections. You can tell me I said vocals because, I don't know, this is the famous story where John thought he was taking speed for the vocal session and he accidentally took a LSD tab or pill and he freaked out and he had to go home, you know, man down. This has come to be one of my favorite Beatles songs over the years. I really, really like this one. I'm just always in the mood to listen to it. And it's back to back with probably definitely one of my top 5 favorite Beatles songs, just Fixing the Hole, which we'll get into later. But not now, because this is the Getting Better video. If you have any more questions, ask me. Leave a comment. Hell yeah.